Greatness, she learned, was a brutal and lonely road, demanding a sacrifice far beyond what happens on the court. That single, devastating truth is the key to understanding the real story of Lexie Hull. While the sports world was busy celebrating her incredible comeback, framing it as a heartwarming tale of a player who rediscovered her confidence, they were missing the story that was happening in the shadows. They missed the fine print on the unspoken contract she was forced to sign. Because Lexie Hull's career wasn't just saved by Caitlin Clark's arrival, it was fundamentally redefined, reforged into something new and brutal. She was just a teammate. She became a shield, a bodyguard, an enforcer. And today, we're going to connect the dots and reveal the immense and until now untold sacrifice she made to protect the league's most valuable asset, a sacrifice of body, mind, and identity that pushed her to the absolute breaking point. This is the kind of deep dive investigation we live for here. We filter out the noise to find the narrative the mainstream media won't touch. So if you believe the story behind the story is what truly matters, do me a favor and smash that like button. It's a huge signal to us that we're on the right track. To understand the price Lexie Hull had to pay, you first have to understand the unprecedented threat the Indiana Fever were facing. Caitlin Clark didn't just enter the WNBA, she entered a war zone. The rest of the league, reportedly resentful of the instant attention and the Fever's newfound swagger, unleashed a level of physicality that was borderline dangerous. This wasn't just tough basketball. This was a systematic campaign of intimidation. The record shows a pattern of cheap shots, hard fouls, and multiple documented flagrant fouls designed to do one thing: break the rookie phenom. Clark was being hunted on the court, and for the first few weeks of the season, it was working. The team started with a dismal 1-8 record, and the franchise's golden goose was being treated like a piata. Let's stop and think about that for a second. As narrative analysts, we have to ask the question, was this just individual players being aggressive, or was this a coordinated, league-wide message being sent? Let me know your theory in the comments below. This is the environment of chaos that created the need for a protector. And that brings us to the moment that changed everything. The story, now legendary among insiders, centers on one of the team's first practices together. According to witnesses, after a series of sloppy plays, Clark's notorious intensity finally boiled over. She stopped the drill and openly called out several veteran players, not with encouragement, but with raw, unfiltered frustration. The tension in that gym was described as suffocating. This was the moment that could have shattered the locker room. The coaching staff, in a massive gamble, made the secret decision to let Clark's fire run its course, even if it risked a full-blown mutiny. While some players recoiled from this new, abrasive standard, Lexie Hull, whose own career was hanging by a thread, saw something else. She saw a lifeline. This wasn't just about saving her spot on the team. This was a conscious choice. In that moment of intense pressure, Hull made the decision to not just meet Clark's fire with her own, but to stand with her in that fire. She was the first to step up, and in doing so, she implicitly accepted the brutal, unspoken job description. If Caitlin Clark was the target, Lexie Hull would be the shield. That singular choice to align herself with Clark was the beginning of a complete personal and professional transformation. The job description for Lexie Hull was no longer just guard for the Indiana Fever. It now included an unwritten, but critically important, set of responsibilities. It meant being the first one to step in when an opponent got too physical. It meant developing a reputation around the league as the player you didn't mess with. Not because she was a dirty player, but because an attack on Clark was an attack on all of them. The record shows multiple documented incidents of Hull physically defending Clark from aggressive opponents, placing her body between her teammate and a potential threat. This wasn't just instinct, it was a strategy. She had to become the team's emotional and physical thermostat, absorbing the hostility directed at her superstar teammate and redirecting it, ensuring Clark could stay focused on winning the game, not just surviving it. Now, let's add another layer to this. We have to remember the context of where Hull was in her career. She was already fighting to prove she belonged in a league that had nearly swallowed her whole.
The basketball part of the transition is really tough. Everybody out on the court was one of the best players on their college teams, definitely the best player. I've seen so much growth, not only on the team side, how we're performing on the court, but also the growth in fans. I mean, on the road, it felt like home games. We're playing in sold-out arenas that we...
Think about that. The normal pressure of transitioning to the WNBA was already, in her own words, really tough. She was already dealing with the immense challenge of facing the best player from every college team, every single night. Now, on top of that already monumental task, she added the full-time job of being Caitlin Clark's personal security detail on the court. The physical price of this dual role is staggering. In a candid interview, Hull admitted that just keeping up with Clark's standard was the hardest thing she's ever done, requiring a complete overhaul of her life, from showing up hours early to spending nights studying film. Now, imagine doing all of that, while also carrying the burden of being the team's primary physical deterrent. It's a recipe for complete and total burnout. But the physical cost, as immense as it was, pales in comparison to the mental and emotional toll. This is the part of the story that happens in the quiet moments, away from the cameras. Greatness, as she learned, is a brutal and lonely road. The role of an enforcer is an isolating one. You become the villain in another team's story. You absorb the anger of opposing players and fans. You face the onslaught of social media criticism, as was described in reports about her season. You carry the heavy, silent weight of knowing that one moment of hesitation, one missed opportunity to step in, could result in an injury that could derail the entire franchise. This simmering hostility, this constant pressure cooker of aggression, was never going to stay under the surface. It was inevitably going to explode. And according to insiders, that's exactly what happened in a game against a veteran-led rival team. Now, we're moving into the territory of events pieced together from witness accounts and insider reports. But for the narrative analysts watching, this is the moment where all the dots connect. An opposing player, known for her aggressive tactics, delivered a flagrant foul on Clark, sending her hard to the floor. But before anyone else could even react, Lexie Hull was there. She was reportedly in the aggressor's face, a fiery, unfiltered confrontation that didn't just clear both benches, it sent a seismic shockwave through the entire league. Hull was ejected, but the price was worth it. The message had been sent, and it was brutally clear the days of treating Caitlin Clark like a target were over. An attack on her was an attack on all of them. That single act galvanized the Indiana Fever, but at what cost to Hull? She was punished, ejected from the game for an act of protection that was arguably forced upon her by the league's refusal to properly defend its biggest star. What do you think? Was her ejection a fair consequence for her actions, or was she being punished for doing the job the referees wouldn't? Drop your verdict in the comments. This moment crystallizes the brutal reality of Hull's on-court role. She is the shield. She is the enforcer. She is the one willing to pay the price. But this is where the narrative fissure appears. Because that violent, confrontational protector on the court seems to be a completely different person from the one her teammates, and especially Caitlin Clark, know in the locker room. Listen to how Hull herself describes the importance of her relationship with Clark, away from the heat of battle.
To be on the court with Caitlin Clark, and you also struck up a friendship with her. Can you talk about how important it is to have that camaraderie on and off the court?
I think it was important to get to know her off the court because I do think that, connections, getting to know people really play a part in the success of teams. And it's really awesome to get to know her as well because, she's a great person, but you have all these expectations put on her and our team has put on her, and fans have put on her. So to see her kind of be so mature in that transition, it's been really awesome. And I'm just really proud to, have.
Let that sink in. The same player who was just ejected for a bench-clearing confrontation is speaking about the importance of off-court connections and praising her friend's maturity. How can both of these realities exist in the same person? How do you reconcile the loyal, supportive friend with the on-court bodyguard, willing to sacrifice her own presence in a game to send a message? This is the core of the sacrifice. It's not just physical or mental. It's a sacrifice of a unified self. That question the fissure between the friend and the enforcer is, where we find the ultimate sacrifice. Because the most brutal cost Lexie Hull had to pay wasn't measured in bruises or exhaustion. It was a sacrifice of her own identity. Let's not forget, this is a player who was the 6th overall pick in the draft, a national champion at Stanford, a brilliant competitor with a high basketball IQ. But the role the Indiana Fever desperately needed her to play wasn't that of a skilled scorer or a tactical playmaker. They needed a bodyguard. They needed a lightning rod to draw the hostility away from their generational star. And in order to win, in order to save her own career and help build a championship contender, Hull was forced to trade a piece of her own identity as a player to become the human shield the team required. Her narrative was no longer her own. It became a subplot in the Caitlin Clark story. This is the hidden truth behind the Fever's incredible turnaround. Their path to a future championship is just paved with a shared commitment to winning. It's being paved by Lexie Hull's relentless, painful sacrifice. The final devastating secret is that the person who saved the Indiana Fever's culture might be losing herself in the process. And when you carry that kind of weight for that long, it's no wonder you might feel like you just can't do it anymore. So what's your take on all this? We want to hear your final verdict. Drop a comment below. Did the Fever take advantage of Lexie Hull's loyalty, or was this simply what a great teammate does to win? And if you believe in digging deeper to find the stories the media overlooks, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. We are constantly tracking these evolving narratives, and you don't want to miss what we uncover next? Finally, if you know another fan who only sees the highlights, share this video with them. Every narrative analyst deserves to understand the true price of victory.